the mitigation of the urban sprawl. It is becoming very evident that our population is growing at an exponential rate. And seeing that, a question might occur to you, is that how are we going to house the future generations going into this growing population? And a very clear solution that might come up to you is that cities might be a great answer and solution to this problem. Why might we use these cities to house the future generations? Well, besides the many economic benefits that they bring, they also have compact and convenient living styles due to the fact that instead of building outwards, we're building upwards. And something that you might want to know is that cities are growing along with the population at an exponential rate. According to Mark R. Montgomery, who wrote in the Stimulus article, he says that through the periods of 2000 and 2024, our population will grow by 1.76 billion, and with 86% of that will be growing in these cities. Seeing that cities are being an important factor in the future, I decided to research a lot more about them. And the problem that I found was that urban areas have many negative impacts on our health. And the question I wanted to answer is that because there are many negative impacts, how can we get rid of these health issues? As I said, there are many health issues that I found when researching urban areas, such as increased risk of illness, increased risk of mental health issues, there are poor sanitation, and then pollution. The first thing I would like to talk about is that there's increased chance of of illness and other health issues. The first reason why I found this is because that infectious diseases spread much faster. Due to the nature of cities, you're living in much closer quarters to your peers, which increases the chance for diseases to spread. As said by Carl Nydrud, a graduate from Uppsala University in Sweden, he says that new megacities coming up can be incubators for new worldwide epidemics, showing that these spread much faster. Another reason besides illness is the fact that diabetes is going to become a much more prominent feature in cities, and this is because of the lack of fresh food. In the New York food policy, it is said that the fast food industry is becoming a significant part of New York culture, and later in the article, they say that combined, McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts combined have nearly 1,000 facilities simply just in the city, which shows how much fast food options are available to you rather than fresh food. The last thing I would like to talk about is carbon dioxide emissions. This is already a very known cause of climate change, but in terms of talking about cities, it causes many negative impacts on your health in terms of lung diseases such as asthma or other chronic illnesses like lung cancer. And the American Lung Association says that LA is one of the leading emitters of CO2 in the country. The next problem I would like to talk about is the fact that mental health issues is also another negative impact on our health that cities brings. The first reason why is that the around-the-clock chaos that cities bring with people trying to get to and from work and doing many of their other activities bombard the senses and create much higher levels of stress due to the fact that your senses are just being overwhelmed constantly. And this leads to many states of depression. And as Dr. Oliver Grubner says that studies have shown higher rates of pollution, noise pollution, city design, or more physical threats likely increase levels of stress. The second part I'd like to talk about is the fact that the difference between economic classes are creating social isolations between the wealthier class and then the poorer class. This social isolation has been shown to cause many mental health issues such as schizophrenia, and that was found in the same article by Dr. Oliver Grubner. The last part I'd like to talk about is the fact that development in the cities. Seeing that cities are going to become such a staple in the future generations, many children are going to be growing up in cities. And as Kathleen Wolfe says it, natural scenes evoke positive emotions and lead to better future lifestyles in terms of mental health. Seeing that much more children are going to be growing up in cities, the likelihood of mental health issues in the future is going to be exponentially increased due to the fact they're not experiencing nature in its simplest form by going out into the woods. The last problem that I found was that cities, especially in developing countries, have poor sanitation. In the And the Unite for Sight organization says that many of these many people in poor countries are living in cramped houses with a multitude of health hazards. This shows that people are living constantly in danger in their own households in cities due to the fact of poor sanitation. The next part is that water sanitation is another big part of why people are contracting illnesses. In developing countries, many people are not receiving high enough quality water and they're contracting illnesses. In a quote from the World Health Organization says that more than 50% of urban residents are still affected at one time or another by disease related to insufficient access to safe drinking water. Seeing that water is such an important part of our life, it's very unfortunate that people are suffering from illnesses due to poor sanitation. And the last part is that the inequality of high quality facilities. Seeing that the poor in cities, the economic divide leads to many of the poor people not receiving the same high quality facilities that are needed to maintain optimum health. And a quote from the Encyclopedia of World Problems says that in general, the rich are receiving these more high quality facilities where the poor are not receiving the same treatment. And this just shows that many people in developing countries are just are bound to a life of poor health just because of their class. A solution that I found to this was that we should be creating green cities. Seeing that there would be large amounts of controversy and a large amount of political and other problems, it would be hard for us to completely stop and get rid of all the cities. So an alternative that I found is that by creating green cities, we could create a much easier solution to decide upon. And in the quote from Strong Cities, which focuses on creating economic sustainability, this says that it is feasible both financially and politically to make cities more walkable. Simple and low-cost improvements to features like painted bike lanes, wayfinding signs, curb cuts, and tree coverage have disproportionate impacts in transforming a car-dependent metropolis. Seeing that we can get rid of many sources of pollution like noise pollution or CO2 emissions, that's going to lower the chances of mental health, physical health. And the fact that we're adding greenery, it's also lowering the likelihood of other mental health issues. In conclusion, I found that we can create a compromise politically and financially with a solution of green cities. It makes it much more simpler rather than finding a drastic measure that we can take. The next thing I found is that we need to make healthcare we need to find equity in healthcare further in the future. Seeing that a lot of the problems are caused by an inequity from class divide in cities, we need to get rid of this inequity inequity of treatment between the poor and the wealthy. And then the last thing is that we need to put health first over all of our economic endeavors. Seeing that we should rather, instead of building out cities, we should focus on human health. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks, Max. I got a couple of questions for you. First, how valid and reliable were the sources you used, and what criteria did you use to either use or choose not to use a source?
Well, many of the sources I found were from university scholars who had spent lots of their lives researching or spent a good time of their lives studying this, like the negative impacts that urban areas bring to our health. And so I was trying to look for either a criteria of like people who have graduated from respectable universities and they've graduated with PhDs or some further proof that they have like sufficiently studied. And then from the other sources, like the organizations that I chose, what I was trying to find is that to see what background they had in the community of the health, like urban health field.
Terrific. And then as a follow-up, what would be the real-world implications or consequences of your findings? Like if we actually went forward with the green cities, what do you think would be the consequences of that, both pro and con?
Well, I think a lot of the pros is that because we're creating, what I mentioned is that the solution would be creating more walkable more walkable cities, which is totally eliminating the usage of cars And so what that first would bring is that lack of carbon emissions from the cars, which would do a great deed to the environment. But it's also encouraging people for more physical activities because it's completely removing the automated form of transportation. So it's encouraging physical activity. But I think the biggest con would just be the fact that to implement this kind of things, it would require us to remodel completely the general base of what our cities are founded on. We'd have to completely change up all of the roads and everything that we've kind of built our society on. So I think that'd be the biggest con, just because how difficult implementing a green city to our already pre-existing cities. But continuing further with building it, it'd be much easier just due to the fact that it's low cost improvements to the urban areas.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.